right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining our January California Brokers Business Accelerator on 2021 Real Estate, A Look Ahead, hosted by Tom Bullock, but also featuring Michelle Beason and Ryan Rosas. I want to quickly remind you of a wonderful product from SharpTC, our in-house transaction coordinators. SharpTC will not only be your transaction coordinator throughout your entire transaction from start to finish, but when your transaction closes, your client will receive a closing gift box directly from you, but you don't have to lift a finger. SharpTC does all the work. Each transaction done with SharpTC is only $400, but you can get your first transaction done for $250. Also, we do have a national webinar going live tomorrow with our very own Director of Marketing, Danielle Brummett. She'll be going over common roadblocks that she helps her clients overcome, social media strategies, her top tips, and more. Make sure to tune in at 10 a.m. Pacific or 1 p.m. Eastern. I will also share the registration link in the chat for those who have not yet registered. And today's webinar is sponsored by Movement Mortgage. We have two loan officers available to you, John Solik and Cheryl Zensky. We have John and Cheryl with us today to give us a brief update on the mortgage industry, so I'll go ahead and pass it over to them. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Of course. Do you guys have anything to go over with us today?
Well, John, are you there?
I'm here. Good morning.
There you are. Good morning. Did you want to just start it off and say a couple things? I know we only
there's just one thing that's kind of stuck out to me that I don't know if a lot of our realtor partners know this, but I would like to focus on our VA programs that we have available. Here at Movement Mortgage, we do not charge any processing or underwriting fees for any of our VA buyers. That's a standard $1,790 charge that is typical on a conventional or FHA deal, just to cover the overhead for processing and underwriting, but that is waived on all of our VA deals. So if you are working with any VA buyers out there, we are very competitive, and obviously we'd love to give back to the people who serve our country. So that was just one thing I wanted to highlight, and then I'll pass it back to you, Cheryl.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's absolutely, it's a terrific opportunity for that. One of the other things that I wanted to mention that I brought up in our last meeting was that last week was that we do have some ways of getting you information if you want a specific county and what's going on with the market. The 2021 look forward into this year, it is looking good, and the future is definitely bright. The interest rates are expected to stay low. The constants we have are low interest rates and low inventory, which is going to keep appreciation going. We're going to see some really nice appreciations here in Riverside County. We're going to see 7.7, 30% over the next 5 years. 7.7 is just this year, but I have information on every county that John and I can provide to you. So just reach out to us, let us know. We'll get that information to you to help you market in your area. That's it.
Okay, awesome, guys. Thank you so much for that. Agents, as you can see, I do have both John and Cheryl's information on the slide. So please reach out to them if you have any questions about Movement Mortgage. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Remember, if you have any questions during this presentation, you can type them in the chat box on your Zoom control panel, and we will do a Q&A at the end of this presentation. But I'll now pass it over to our brokers, starting with Tom. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. How is everybody today?
I'm doing great.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, Carly. Thank you for turning it over. In putting together my presentation today, I wanted to really kind of cover, what do I see going forward with respect to our business, your day-to-day activities, and what we've seen as a reflection coming off of 2020, and then going forward into 2021, what we can do to hopefully make your business activities and experience a more pleasant and a safer journey. Coming off of 2020 was a mixed year, quite frankly. The bad side was obviously the pandemic and everything we had to face, the new challenges in terms of our practice that we had to deal with on a day in and day out basis. The good side, though, is real estate was red hot. There are a number of people that our agents, who had record-setting years for income. So, where our market and our business is not an easy one, there was money to be made. And a number of our agents made very good money in 2020. But having said that, I know business is harder to get. So you're working twice as hard, a lot of you, and making half the money. So how does this translate into our marketplace in 2021? What I see happening is the first half of 2021, when it comes to COVID-19, is that I don't think there's going to be much of a change. What I have noticed in the last week is that the vaccine seems to be a bit more plentiful, and appointments are becoming available for people to get their shots and get the vaccine started. So that's a good thing. That's a real good thing. But even with that, even if you're able to get a vaccine shot in February, it's a 3-week wait between shot 1 and shot 2. So that takes you into March, the end of the first quarter. So you need to be aware of that, not much in terms of our activity, the safety factors that we have built into our business will not be going away. In fact, I don't think they're going to go away until at least mid-year. And even then, I think it might be modified and brought back, so it's not quite as stringent. But I do see it continuing even in the second half of 2021. So, it's important for all of us to be safe, to be careful in our day-to-day activities of interfacing with the public. A number of our agents, unfortunately, have contacted COVID-19 and have suffered as a result. So you have to be careful out there. And if you're going to err on the side of caution when it comes to your business practices and COVID-19. Pay attention to the car.org website and go there once a week and just update yourself on anything new that they're seeing, that they're broadcasting. And you'll also find there, when they start reeling back some of the COVID-19 safety precautions, how that might, that will give you a jump start on that. More agents do not follow that than do follow that. So again, that helps your business. It makes you more knowledgeable, it makes you more credible. And so my suggestion is follow that. You don't have to get on it every day, but once a week is not much. And you can get on there and get through there pretty quick and find out if there's anything new in terms of updates that you need to be aware of and follow in terms of your day-to-day practice. Open houses obviously are not open yet. We are not, we're not following any kind of an open house type program or procedure. None of the brokerages are. If you're hearing about an agent or a brokerage that's allowing agents to do open houses, that's a DRE mandate violation, as well as a governor's mandate violation. So, there's some protocols here that need to be followed. If you have any questions on what you should be doing or should not be doing in terms of COVID-19, call your broker. We are more than happy to discuss with you whatever it is you have a question about and elaborate on that if need be. So that's what I am really kind of promoting here. As far as the market is concerned, I think we are seeing low inventory. We are seeing sales happening, multiple offers, bidding above the sale price or the list price on the property. How do you waive? What type of contingencies do you waive in terms of, how about the appraisal contingency, loan contingencies, inspection contingencies? How can I protect my buyer? How can I protect my seller? So those are, questions that are coming up each and every day to both myself as well as Michelle and Ryan. And so we need to just be really careful. And if you have a question, even if your buyer's insisting on waiving all their contingencies and you're kind of scratching your head saying, well, what can I do to protect them? Call your broker and brainstorm it. There may be something you can do. There may not be, but at least you're examining and researching all the avenues that potentially could be open to you, and having your broker help you explore what might work and not work, and what you can do and what you cannot do in terms of DRE type violations. Michelle, do you have anything to add?
Well, I do. One of the things I want to make sure that our agents are doing, and I say this all the time, is, people tend to get emotional when they're going in these back and forth negotiations, and buyers tend to agree to waive things that they probably shouldn't agree to waive, as far as contingencies go. And then that comes around later and bites us in the butt. They waive inspection contingency, but they still do the inspection and they find all these issues and we've got to deal with them. So what I want to encourage you guys is to make sure you have a firm grasp on what it means to waive your contingency, and you're properly explaining that to your clients. It's, you look at like appraisal contingency for one thing. People get really excited when they got a listing and the buyer waives appraisal contingency. But, honestly, if the appraisal's way off and they don't have the money to cover it, they're likely going to get a loan denial. So is the appraisal contingency really worth anything? You need to understand these things. And what I suggest is, if you get an offer on a listing that waives appraisal contingency, you make sure you're negotiating in advance that they agree to cover any deficiency. Because if you don't do that, you end up with a loan denial in the end. But if contractually they waive, they agree to cover that deficiency, and you can put caps on it. I've given my agents language for it. Then you have less of a problem. And another thing I just wanted to add, and then I'll be done, is about multiple offers. So there's a procedure when you receive a second offer that you need to follow. This has been we had a huge issue on this just a couple weeks ago, and Tom and I had to deal with it. But when you have an offer and you have sent out a counter and you receive a second offer, so now you have multiple offers, don't deal with the second offer until you deal with the first. And the procedure to follow on that is to immediately send an email to that first offer withdrawing your counter offer, and then you can follow up with a withdrawal of counter offer form. A withdrawal of offer form. If you don't do that, you run the risk of the seller accepting two contracts. And while there are ways out of it, kind of hidden in the whole procedure, we don't want to be stressing over it and having confusion. If you just follow these procedures right off the bat, then there's no problem. It's clear. You've notified that first guy that, hey, we're no longer in a counteroffer, we're in a multiple counteroffer situation, and you do it that way. So I think that's all I have. Ryan, did you have anything to add?
I do. I kind of wanted to touch base a little bit on what you touched on, which is appraisals. So up here in my market, like yours, we're seeing a lot of multiple offers, very competitive. It's a seller's market. And as opposed to appraisals being waived with the offer, sometimes we see that, but we're seeing more language in there about the buyer's willingness to cover an appraisal difference should one occur. And if a cap is written in on that as well, sometimes we'll see a cap, sometimes we won't. But what I would just encourage all of our agents to do is just become specialists on that. What does that look like? Whether you're representing the buyer or the seller, because it's going to look a little bit different in either case. But you really need to understand what that is, because we are in the thick of a market that we're going to see more and more of that. The other thing that we're starting to see a lot more of right now is seller rent backs for a significant period of time. I'll just remind everyone that if it's a 30-day or greater rent back, it is considered a lease, and a standard SIP will not be accepted. You have to do a residential lease after sale. And so, like the appraisals, I think our agents should become experts on what those rent backs look like, what costs are involved, how to negotiate the best deal. But really, the best way to capture this market is to be an expert in everything that's happening in the market right now as it's happening. And those are a couple of good things for you guys to understand and to really become experts on. That's pretty much all I have. The only other thing that I wanted to add to everybody out there, and I know Michelle and Tom could probably appreciate this, I have been seeing a lot of shorter escrows come through in my files. I need and appreciate people submitting their paperwork in a timely manner. I have seen a few times where I will get all the documentation 3 or 4 days before the close of escrow, and then an agent wants their demand.
Mhm.
And quite honestly, Tom, Michelle, and I handle hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of files. So, what we ask in return, in order for us to be able to make sure that you guys get paid on time, is for you guys to reciprocate that and get us documentation on time, especially if it's a short escrow. If you have a 10 or 12 or 15-day escrow, shoot me an email and say, hey, Ryan, I just created this file. It's a short escrow. Can you put your eyes on it right away? That helps me help you.
We do have a 48-hour rule in place.
Yeah.
So guys, you have to upload your stuff in 48 hours. And Tom can attest, we just had a huge issue with that with one of my files.
Yeah, and I've dealt with the
it's a
issues of
problem.
that
Mhm.
as well, because when things don't come in a timely manner, Michelle's absolutely right. We run the risk of not being able to catch something that needs to be caught.
Mhm.
I've had to deal with that on my end as well. So yes, please adhere to the 48-hour rule. Again, it helps us help you.
And you can be fined, just a reminder, if you don't follow the rule.
Yeah.
So please follow the rule.
I've done that. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank both of you. Yeah, the second part of what I wanted to cover today was what kind of business practices can each and every one of you practice that will help you and your business run a smooth transaction, real estate transaction. As both Ryan and Michelle have alluded, we've had some issues lately regarding some business practices that, quite frankly, could have been avoided had just simple steps been taken early on. And first and foremost, obviously, is communication. You need to return your calls to your clients, whether it's a buyer, seller, or the other agent. Even if you have nothing to add or update, if you get a call them back. Just say, hey, John, thank you for your call. Per our discussion, I'm working on it. I don't have an update just yet, but, I want you to know I'm not forgetting about you. Now, whether that's a call or an email or even a text, cover yourself. Make sure that, the other side may not like what you're presenting to them, but they can't argue the fact that you're not calling, which adds to the list on their complaints. So communication. And as you communicate throughout the transaction, make sure you upload that into SkySlope. That all becomes a part of the documentation that we may or may not need after the close. All three of us, Ryan, Michelle, and I, have all had situations come back where an escrow might have closed 6 months, even a year, sometimes more, longer in terms of timetable, and had them come back in the form of a lawsuit. So you need to communicate and then log in your communication with SkySlope and memorialize it, because that all helps when that lawsuit pops up, or when we start getting letters from attorneys about a complaint their client has. At least that gives us more of a basis, both Matt and Victoria, Ryan, Michelle, and I, to go back in and just, after 6 months, after a year, with all the files that we handle, we don't always remember details. We don't remember details. So we rely on the file to go back and refresh our memory so we can remember. Then we can come back to you and we can discuss it. And then we can go to the attorneys after that and put together whatever documentation might be required. So communication, memorialize your communication. That's vitally important. We had a situation recently where, with multiple offers, we all know the agents we're dealing with, particularly the newer agents that don't have much experience, they're submitting an offer and they get all excited. And then it turns into a multiple offer situation, and then their offer doesn't get picked. Well, right away, their first thought is, oh, that listing agent, that Ellis and James agent, didn't present my offer to the seller. on page 10, the last page of the documentation on the RPA, simply have your seller initial that they reviewed the offer, and if they reject it, rejected the offer. That saves so much time and so much of a headache, so that all you have to produce, if you get challenged on that front, and it's happening, that all you have to do is reproduce page 10 showing the seller's initials that they reviewed the file and or the offer and rejected the offer. So please keep that in mind when you're presenting all offers to the seller. Again, upload all your notes to SkySlope and know your contractual agreement, so that as you move down the transaction and getting closer and closer to close, sometimes, I mean, sellers or buyers get a misinterpretation as to what they may have agreed to. Sometimes even the other agent doesn't know what in the world they agreed to. So make sure you are on top of it, and that'll head off a lot of different issues that you may have to deal with right at the close. So, you know, again, know the agreement for each and every file you're processing, and keep notes on it. So, you know, if you are having an issue, or if you project something going sideways, just make notes of it on the cover, so that if a call comes in, you can refer to the note and boom, you got it taken care of and you can move on. Again, if it's something that you want to discuss with your broker, always call your broker, so that it can be discussed and brainstormed and talked about. Another item I had, deadlines. You know, we kind of alluded to it here earlier. Don't make short deadlines. It's maybe inspection deadlines you can shorten, not appraisal deadlines, because the business is so busy right now that if you put in that I want a 10-day or a 5-day inspection contingency, then I'll remove it, or I want a 10-day appraisal contingency removal time period. If you can't meet that because of the business and the timetable of everybody's schedule, don't put it in there. All you're doing is creating a problem. And it may not be a problem to get the offer accepted, but after 10 days, trust me, if that appraisal isn't in and your buyer's not willing to waive that contingency, you have an issue on your hands. So again, when you're pushing to get an offer accepted, be sensible about it. Know what your limitations are, and don't overpromise and underdeliver. That creates more problems and takes a good transaction and a good sale into a bad situation. So short deadlines, for the most part in today's market, I don't think are working at all. Prelims, I'm noticing lately that prelims are coming in towards the end of the transaction, closer to closing than at the beginning. The first thing you should do when you open escrow is order the prelim. If there's an issue with the title, if the seller has an IRS lien, those don't go away right away. You have to communicate. And with the land of COVID, they're all working from home as well. So you have to be very, very careful about the title. Is it clear? Are there any encumbrances on there? You know, such as solar. Is there a cloud on the title, such as an IRS lien, or is that seller being sued by somebody and lost that suit? Get that prelim up front so you can review it, look at it, and know that you're dealing with a clear title. That'll save you time and escrow closing delays by doing it up front and handling it right away if there's an issue. Last thing I have is do not cross out forms. I had a situation where in Newport, it was a $4 million listing. The seller took the the California residential listing agreement and took it to his attorney, who crossed off everything, pretty much everything in that agreement, and wanted us to sign it. They even wanted to cross out the phrase on page 2, I think it was 4D, that stated that should the seller misrepresent or not disclose any material fact to the property, that they would not indemnify the escrow against their error. that they wanted to be able to have the brokerage, us, take care of all and any material fact that they failed to disclose. So again, do not cross out any form, whether it's the purchase agreement, listing agreement, or any other form. If there's a part of that form that you do not agree to, then amend it, either by way of an amendment, if it's dealing with the listing agreement or the purchase agreement, or an addendum, whatever both parties, buyer and seller, agree to void, you write that into the addendum. You have both buyer and seller agree to it, and that will supersede the RPA. So again, don't cross out, amend both the RPA and the listing agreement. Michelle, do you have anything to add?
I did. When you were talking about what you were talking about in the beginning, I just want to have you guys think, maybe change your shift the way you think a little bit as far as things being in writing. Everything needs to be in writing. And what I mean is, remember who the parties of the contract are. It is not the listing agent and the selling agent. So sometimes there's, our contracts say one thing, and there might be some sort of modification that's discussed between the realtors, via email or whatever. But it's discussed between the realtors. That's not an agreement by buyer and seller. So if there's an arrangement made between realtors, even if it's in writing via email, I really want to encourage you guys to follow up with a document that solidifies that buyer and seller sign. Just because you discussed it with the other agent, the agent can't obligate his seller to anything, or you can't obligate your buyer to anything, and vice versa. So it's incredibly important when things are discussed via email and modifications of any sort, even if it's something simple as a repair request. Where originally they said they weren't going to repair something, and then they say in email they are, then you need to send in a modification to your request for repair, or we need to send in a modification to the quad R, for example. So again, guys, we're in contracts here. We need to know contracts. We need to know our terms. I've also been seeing contradictory terms in files lately. So, our RLA might say one thing, and then there's another thing, and the commission instructions, and we don't have a paper trail for that. So paper trails are incredibly important. And like Tom said, memorializing your communications, especially if they're over the phone. I know it's an extra step and it's a little bit of a pain, but you should be sending an email at the end of the day, memorializing any phone conversation you had in writing. And also, SkySlope has that email address for your file. If you CC that email address and everything, all of your email communication automatically gets uploaded to the file. So, a couple things just to keep in mind, guys. Everything we talk about needs to be in writing. And just a final little thought, try not to get emotional about it. We're seeing a lot of problems between agents, and it's just egos are getting in the way, or emotions are getting in the way. And, guys, even if the other guy's getting a little out of control, you can remain calm. They don't affect you really. Just remain calm and professional in all of your dealings. And remember, your emails may become part of a court case in the future. So pay attention to your emails, proofread, don't use emojis and LOLs, and, sound professional. And, if we have to sit in front of a judge, it will show. So that's about it for me.
Actually, I just received a text from Ryan. Apparently they have a power outage up north in Northern California, and he's off the webinar now.
Oh no.
So Ryan won't be adding anymore due to the power outage.
Yeah.
That kind of wraps it up for me. Again, the brokers, Ryan, Michelle, and I are here to help you and to hopefully make your path to a successful sale and close easier than if anything comes up, the sooner you get to us, the sooner we can help you get the situation taken care of. We can give you directions on how you might handle it. If we need to get involved, we're open to that as well by talking with the other brokers. One practice that we all have to follow as brokers is, we're not going to call the other agent and discuss a solution with them. We're going to call the other broker because at our level, being a broker, we can't just reach out to other agents. We have a protocol to follow. And if that other broker gives us permission to talk to the other agent, fine, but we have to go through the other broker. So keep that in mind. Once we start getting involved, that's the direction we have to head. Cardi, that's what I have for today. I hope that everybody learned and picked up some things on this. 2021, I believe, will be a banner year for all of us. It's going to be busy, but you have to get out there and work, and you have to be out there and be safe. So please, use your brokerage, use our company as your support team. That's why we're here. And, we look forward to 2021 as being a banner year for all of us. Carly?
Looks like we do have one question for you in the chat. Tom, do you recommend emailing the seller signed rejection to the buyer's agent?
Yeah, you can. I wouldn't take that step unless you get challenged. I would save that for a challenge if you need be. Now, we have it in our files in SkySlope. So if you, as an agent, makes that a part of your practice to get that initialed, and whether it's, that the seller reviewed it and rejected it, or reviewed it, and if they send out a multiple counteroffer or a counteroffer, then it's not an outright rejection. So I wouldn't necessarily, if you get a rejection, I wouldn't necessarily send that out immediately. I would hold it close to the vest, so to speak. And if you need it, you have it. And, if that agent calls you and starts saying, hey, you never presented it, just say, hey, listen, I did present it. I have proof to show that. And let me send that over to you. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. Boom, it's all over with.
Yeah.
So, that's what I would suggest. Michelle, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I agree with you on that. Like I said, they will, a lot of realtors are requesting it now, and you just hand it to them, but you don't need to do that automatically. I agree with you on that.
Okay, great. It doesn't look like we have any more direct questions. But of course, if you guys have any questions, the agents, that you can contact your brokers directly. Let me just take another look. Barbara, you have your hand up in the Zoom control panel. Do you have a question for us? You can type it in the chat. I'll just leave a few more moments to see if we have any more questions. Oh, no worries, Barbara. All right, well, like I said, of course, you guys know you can contact your brokers directly. They're always here for any questions that you might have. They're very accessible. So I just want to say thank you to our brokers for all of your wonderful insight, and a special thank you to Tom for organizing today's topic and presentation. So thanks again to everyone for joining us today, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.